Здравствуйте.
Здрасте.
У вас проблемы?
Нет, я танцую. Опа.
Скажите, и вы все время вот так вот танцуете?
А что, вот вчера пошли с другом на дискотечку. О, там видели прекрасных двух девочек. Ну, значит, потанцевали с ними, немного выпили.
А потом? Понимаю.
Ну.
И все же, с чего же все началось?
Ой, вы знаете, началось все очень банально. Родился я в интеллигентной семье. Потом, знаете ли, детский сад, учеба, работы нет, бабок нет, и я пошел. И я пошел на завод. Работал у станка.
Тяжело было?
Тяжело? Не знаю. Потом, знаете ли, ушел. Немножечко раскрутился, завел хозяйство.
Большое?
Не знаю.
А как же семья?
Ой, вы знаете, семья. Была одна девушка ушла, вторая ушла, третья ушла, четвертая ушла. Боже, четвертая. Это был ураган. Это была стихия, но словами этого не передать.
Я вижу.
Да. А потом, знаете ли, ссоры, скандалы, и все закончилось. И тут я остался один. Вот. Но, честно говоря, один я был недолго. Потом я пошел в кабаре. Там я и встретил свою будущую супругу.
И где она?
Где она? А вот.
И как вы думаете, это у вас ненадолго?
Ой, честно говоря, положа руку на сердце.
Стоп! Вот тут-то я вас и поймал. Вы же говорили, вы с ней расстались.
Подождите, мне надо подумать. Согласен, поймали, красавец.
Красавец. Ну тогда у меня к вам следующий вопрос. А что же было потом?
А потом пошли обыкновенные дни, рабочие будни. Эй!
Да что вы говорите? Не может быть.
Да, эй. Знаете ли, завел небольшой капиталец.
И куда вы дели деньги?
Ой, деньги это так. Туда-сюда ушли.
Пропил.
Не.
Прогулял.
Да, почти.
То есть...
Вот сейчас самую точку.
Но тогда у меня к вам личный вопрос.
Согласен. Я с удовольствием вам отвечу, только вы мне скажите.
Are you not entertained? Hey, everyone. Happy Saturday. It is Saturday, March the 12th. Want to thank you for tuning in to this Gadfly News Brief, also simulcasting over on CJOMC. I want to give a shout out to those already in the chat room. So welcome, Robert. Welcome, Quantum. I don't have my glasses on. Sorry, Mesloon. Revolutionary Bliss, Hobos in the House, Celeste, Mojo's in the House, Raven. Yeah, that's from a lifetime ago. If it wasn't the events unfolding so tragic, it would be, a comedy witnessing basically what is another deemed useful globalist idiot. No different than what we have here in the United States with Biden. Zelenske is another useful idiot. And that's in my personal opinion. You may feel differently. Good morning, Melissa. Welcome. Also, Michael, welcome. But yes, that was the president of Ukraine, Zelenske. And after reviewing some information, I totally believe that at the beginning of his presidency, way back in the day with Ukraine, that it was more of a PR stunt to garner support for his work and what he did as a comedian. There was actually a made movie, if you will, that was, around, running for president, where most people, they didn't think that they would take this seriously. It was almost like a reality show that they had deemed with Zelenske and running for president. That was one of the videos that I found. This is another interesting one. Let's bring this into the stream because this is almost like a trailer for this movie. You have to watch closely because there's different information in here. So let's bring this one up as well. Did I add it to the stream? I always forget to add to the stream, so bear with me. Here we go. All right.
Значит так, закон один для всех. А иначе, пожалуйста, чемоданы в руки, большой привет.
Вы что, нам угрожаете?
Но я сделаю все, чтобы эти законы были приняты.
Смешно.
Что, ты действительно его выпустишь?
Выпущу одного, посажу всех.
Ты долбанулся, что ли?
С олигархами нужно поступать точно так же. Столкнуть их лбами, развалить коалицию и договориться с каждым по отдельности.
Мы полностью переделали ему внешность, его мама родная не узнает.
Вот здесь потверже сделать, тут помягче.
А если пороже?
А чого сидимо, чого не п'ємо?
Хотілося б побачити президента.
Тарас Андреевич, давайте поговорим о вас.
Президент Голобородько призначив Івана Василюка новим губернатором Харківської області.
Голобородько поставил твоего человека. Слушайте, это грохот. Это рушится коалиция.
Сейчас Вася узнает, что такое запорожское гостеприимство.
Даже не думайте.
Президент просить вибачення, він зараз проводить в Раді фінальні консультації.
Надо быть таким идиотом.
Ну, простите, я не сдержался.
Где президент?
Слуга народа.
Значит так, закон один для всех.
Isn't that entertaining, Mr. Bean? Yeah, it looked like Mr. Bean, didn't it? And you thought you were watching a movie. Oh my gosh, Revolutionary Bliss. That is so accurate. You thought you were witnessing and watching a movie there. Now, there's a specific reason why I played those two trailers. And it's in part because I wanted the entire world, I wanted our listeners to see the very talented Zelenske, and to see, that his talented as being a comedian, being an actor, and him continuation in this role, right? He's basically continuing the role that he's currently in as this made-for-TV president, the useful idiot that's, serving the globalist elite. At least at one point, at least he's coherent. Like, I give him a little bit more credit than I do Biden, right? At least he can complete a sentence. He's coherent enough to complete a thought. He can walk up stairs. All those expectations that we should have as a president, right? Like, you can walk upstairs, you can complete a sentence. You don't need a teleprompter. All those things are like the highest level of criteria that we have for those that should be serving our elected office. But what's interesting about Zelenske in particular is that, and even like many national publications, like, looked at his presidency at the beginning as a, like, why are you doing this? Like, does it make sense, for you to be, doing this, and there was even documentaries, like, I think the BBC ran one back in 2019, as like the comedian who would be president, where they were not necessarily laughing at it, but they were kind of questioning it as to, how this happened. And I think it was a PR stunt. I think it was a PR stunt that gained traction and, gained a lot of followers where people were like, we could use the Zelenske. He could be our globalist elite useful idiot for us to manage from the New World Order. No different than Biden, because if you think that Biden or Zelenske are making the decisions behind the scenes, and you're absolutely clueless, you have no idea how the world works. If I saw that trailer 3 years ago, I'd have watched that. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about the trailer. I found out about it from an article that I started reading, and it linked to several videos about this, and even the BBC documented, which is, everyone knows, the UK British controlled media, which is very interesting. It's the British can have their controlled media like the BBC, but RT can't. Therefore it has to be completely shut down in any and all aspects of visibility, not only in Europe, but also here in the United States. Because in the United States, we're all about freedom of speech. In the United States, we're all about freedom. We're all about freedom. Freedom. We need to spread that democracy. That's what we're going to do. We're going to spread that democracy. But we don't do that. I'm not going to sidestep this conversation because that's a whole other separate topic. But even the BBC question, this BBC is like, the would-be comedian turned president. So let's go back, and let's see exactly what the BBC had to say back in 2019 in regards to the comedian who would be president.
Здрасте.
Василий Петрович Голобородько?
Да.
Доброе утро, господин президент.
Привет, как дела? Серьезный день, ребята. Как настроение? Класс? Це не фейк, і я дуже серйозно відношусь до нашої країни, до життя кожної людини.
И вот здесь, понимаешь, теперь они заставляют детей будки ваши строить. Знаешь, почему у нас жизнь собачья? Да потому что мы свой выбор с тобой начинаем в будках. Понятно? А выбирать-то не из кого. Из двух пи***расов выбираем меньше. И так 25 лет подряд. Ты знаешь, что это?
Да, при решении этого вопроса будет учитываться специфика.
Уважаемые журналисты, я прошу прощения, я не готов к этой пресс-конференции. А совместить физкультуру, спорт, если хотите, изучение украинского мовы. Первая причина, конечно же, они хотели бы видеть в президентах такого человека, как Василий Голобородько, с такими, самое главное, моральными ценностями. А второе, конечно же, это ответ всему политическому истеблишменту. Люди хотят что-то новое.
А я тут ни при чем. Перестаньте. Мы же все понимаем, что это твой человек.
Нет, я был уверен, что Голобородько – это твой человек.
Ясно. Если не твой и не мой, значит, это человек Рустема Ашотовича.
Господа, клянусь, я не имею к Голобородько никакого...
Много всего нового научиться. Посмотреть, как дышит собака.
Я обіцяю вам піти в президенти України. І одразу виконую. Я іду в президенти України. Давайте зробимо це разом. З Новим роком.
Для того, щоб Україна була об'єднана, щоб Україна була захищена, щоб безпека України не ставилася під питання. Прийшли до висновку, що цілісність України і єдність...
Я никакая не игрушка в руках Коломойской. Не был бы игрушкой, честно говоря, в руках ни одного из этих людей.
If you're a man of principles,
yes.
Why are you working for a man who the anti-corruption authorities say has stolen all this money from the people of this country?
Все каналы у нас принадлежат олигархам. Все крупные предприятия принадлежат этим группам. Получается, что мы все люди в Украине, 40 миллионов людей без принципов, мы все работаем на этих предприятиях. Или теперь весь юмор будет про меня? Да?
Про вас.
Какие вы сволочи.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Reality president TV show turned president in Ukraine due to the oligarchs, due to the corruption. And he's still acting a role. Like he's still acting. Like when you see him, in his fatigues, that little camo shirt that he has, and talking a big game, like I'm going to do all those things. He's not even in Ukraine. He's locked up in an embassy in Poland right now. He's not even in Ukraine. He's a coward. He's left a long time ago. But we want to put him up on this pedestal, right? We want to deem him as a hero, as a huge winner, as an elite. He's done so much. Look at him. He's so brave, fighting a battle on the front lines. That's what he does. What a joke. It is surreal, Hobo. It is so surreal because that's the make-believe reality of the narrative that they want to control. And I've heard this the last couple of days, numerous times, that overall the public, probably the U.S. more than any other country, there's a war in the terms of the propaganda to control the information that we read, that we see, that we hear, that we listen to, and all other counter narratives are completely shut down. Completely shut down. And I'd like for those tuning in right now to share this live stream, to share this conversation, because many around the globe look at Zelensky as this, this leader, but have no idea around his background in regards to who funded his campaign, the efforts to put him up basically again as a controlled opposition, controlled idiot, basically, no different than Biden. That's what they're good at. They're really good at that. They're really good at finding. Shouldn't even say they're good at it, but that's what they do. They put these people up and they put them up on a pedestal. They get them elected, and they're controlled. They're controlled individuals. But I think there's some really fundamental questions that we should be asking. Looking at the videos that I just played. A comedian. I'm not sure about you, but I don't know a whole lot of comedians that are billionaires. Maybe they are. I guess I'll have to call a couple of comedian friends that I know that do stand-up comedy and ask them if they're billionaires and if they have a couple million to invest in companies that I'm doing to help, grow some things. So needless to say, there's some questions that we should be asking, and I'm not the only one that's asking these questions. Let's go back to a dated article, and this is dated back, and this from Al Jazeera, and this is dated back to 2012. And this was released by the Pandora Papers. Everyone remembers the Pandora Papers that came out, and they leaked financial information of a lot of the elitist class and their offshore accounts, where the funds, where they listed this. And again, this file goes back to information that was obtained from the ICIJ, claiming that Vladimir Zelensky and his partners established a network of offshore companies in 2012. Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky's office had sought to justify his use of offshore companies as protecting him against pro-Russian forces following leaked revelations in the Pandora Papers. That's how he justified it. Hey, I'm protecting myself because I don't want the Soviets to come in and, take over my billion of assets that I have as a comedian. Zelensky, as you know, was a former comedian, was elected to president in 2019 on promises to fight corruption and reduce the influence of these oligarchs in the ex-Soviet country. But the files obtained from the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the ICIJ, and published on Sunday, claimed that Zelensky and his partners established a network of offshore companies back in 2012. The Pandora Papers are based on documents leaked from this organization, the ICIJ, and expose the offshore dealings of kings, presidents, prime ministers, including Jordan's King Abdullah II, Czech Prime Minister Andrej Babis, and Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta. If I'm mispronouncing that, sorry, deal with it. According to its findings, two of the offshore companies belonging to Zelensky's partners were used to buy 3 lavish properties in central London. The reports also found that Zelensky, just before he was elected, transferred his stake in one of the offshore companies to his top aide, Sharif, the target of a shooting attack last month. An advisor to Zelensky's chief of staff said on Monday that the president had created the offshore companies, quote unquote, to protect the group's income against aggressive acquisitions on the corrupt government of then pro-Russian which we knew, President Yanukovych, who again at the time, there's corruption all around through the Ukraine. From there, those funds became into question. Was that, let's remember that President Zelenske played a history teacher in a comedy series, was elected president after denouncing endemic corruption. In his election campaign, he cultivated an image of a leader and seeking to, quote unquote, break the system and promise a fierce fight against corruption in one of Europe's poorest countries. The Pandora Papers, on the latest in a series of mass leak of financial documents from LuxLeaks in 2014 and 2016 Panama Papers, which triggered the resignation of the Prime Minister of Iceland and paved the way for the forced resignation of the leader of Pakistan. They were followed in the Pakistan Paradise Papers in 2017 and FinCEN files in 2020. Now, these documents basically revealed that Zelenske, thankful to this financial money, which they think that was stolen from the bank, the national bank in Ukraine, was what funded these particular accounts. But more than $1 billion were moved to these offshore banks. More than $1 billion were held in Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's account abroad. This was announced by the deputy of the Verkhovna Rada of the opposition platform, which is the Party for Life, Lyra Kiva. According to him, Zelenske has accumulated $1.2 billion in the Dresdner Bank, Latin America, and Costa Rica during the 2.5 years of his presidency. This money was transferred to the president of Ukraine oligarchs. Several of the oligarchs that are listed there, you look at the money, how they broke that down. So basically, they looted the Bank of Ukraine in the tunes of $1.2 billion, and then divided this fund to basically the people who got him elected through here. And an example of this is that Zelenske, who again, such a world-renowned comedian, does so well for himself, was able to purchase a villa in Miami for $34 million. Do I need to repeat that? Zelenske purchased a villa in Miami for $34 million. Now, I'm seeing a lot of people post that it's the right thing to do, that we as Americans, we need to do the right thing, and we need to pay higher gas prices because we're supporting the people of Ukraine. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Do you not see the people who get away with these things, right? They get away with this, not only in Ukraine, but here in America, is because of a dumbed down society that we don't question anything. We look at the mainstream narrative, and more than likely we fall in line, we follow suit, we put up the hashtags, we put up the Ukrainian flag on our post, not understanding what, friend, colleague, V, the Girl Economist, has said for numerous years, who really probably coined the term, every war is a banker's war. And it's so true. Every war is a banker's war. But you know what? Go ahead. If you're an American and you're proud to pay more at the pump because you know what, I'm proud to pay this because it's the right thing to do, but not knowing any of the background of the corruption that's established, with Zelensky. And again, $1.2 billion in cash in an offshore Costa Rican bank account. $1.2 billion that they looted from Ukraine. A $35 million Florida mansion, okay? And you think this is about the people of Ukraine. Shame on you. Shame on you for not understanding this and not doing the research of having your 1 minute gratification of a social media post, or putting on a hashtag or putting a flag on your post. Every bit of these globalist elite could care less. I was going to start to say ounce, but they care less about people. The people are used to their gains, and they're happy to see death, destruction, because they have their wealth. They have their extraction methods. They have the methods of getting out of these war zones. It has nothing to do about people, has nothing to do about freedom, has nothing to do with democracy. So stop bullshitting yourself and feeling that way. Okay? Stop feeling that you're feeling patriotic because you're willing to support the corruption. I cannot believe that at this stage of the game, the United States, the dysfunctional states of America, stupid Stan, coined by Pepe Escobar, is putting billions of dollars of funding jihadists, Nazis in the Ukraine to fight against Vladimir Putin, who's fighting against the New World Order. But many people don't understand that. They'd rather, silence the counter narrative. They would rather label them as a Russia sympathizer or anti-democracy, all these little coin terms that they have. But you know what? Don't worry, because the Biden administration had meetings with 30 of the most influential TikTok influential people and let them know what's really happening with Ukraine. So we're going to see that entire narrative flipped here real soon. So the amount of corruption and greed, and I encourage everyone to bookmark his YouTube page. You can no longer follow his bigger work that he does on RT. And that's George Galloway. Many of you are very familiar with George. He does tremendous amount of work, so subscribe to his channel. This is what George had to say about the corruption that has occurred with this. So here we go. Let's play this video.
The people of Eastern Ukraine, of whom I speak, declared immediately that they would not live as hunted foreigners in their own country, and so armed themselves and formed themselves into what they declared were independent republics. And the Ukrainian armed forces, armed by the West, funded by the West. How did Zelenske get $1.3 billion in his bank account offshore, revealed in the Pandora Papers? That's quite a lot of money for a comedian, even a good one. And it's certainly a lot of money for a president who's only been in office 2 years. Where did he get the $31 million villa in Florida? That's a lot of money for a comic also. But more of that later. This is where this all started. If you are pretending it started 13 days ago, then you are either a fool or a knave. You are either someone who's been deliberately misled, or you are one of those deliberate deceivers. And you will be unmasked as events continue to march. The people of Eastern Ukraine,
It's all very depressing. That's somewhat true, but there's more of us than them. There's, we can definitely fight back to control this, right? I mean, it's very much a possibility, and we're starting to see that huge narrative change. I think in part why that narrative change is because the fact that you can deny facts, and many of those facts are coming out in media. Now, one thing that's interesting in regards to this, the massive corruption. So you see it with Zelenske. You see the $1.3 billion of wealth he's accumulated as a comedian, right? Because comedians, they earn buku bucks nowadays. However, another thing that's come into interest that many people who may not be aware of are the amount. It's no different here in the United States. So what do I mean by that? The corruption that's being established, with this war, not only does it happen in Ukraine, but it's happening here in the United States through our elected officials. What's being revealed through this is that in the leading up to the escalation with Ukraine, prior to that, there were numerous U.S. politicians who bought energy plays before their run-ups and general discussions on banning Russian oil. Many are on committees privy to private information, including defense and energy. Many had not purchased any energy plays before. Many members of Congress buy energy, defense, stocks prior to Russian invasion of Ukraine, who they are what they bought. Prior to the invasion of Ukraine by Russia and then levying of numerous sanctions by Russia, and the U.S. members of Congress purchased defense and energy stock. Here's a look at the trades. What happened? A report by Unusual Wells highlights that numerous members of Congress purchased stocks in the defense and energy sectors prior to the sanctions being placed on Russia. Many are on committees privy to private information, including defense and energy. Many had never purchased any energy plays before. For example, Republican Marjorie Greene, that everyone's very familiar with, invested in Chevron, Lockheed Martin, and NextEra, which is also an energy company. Robert Whitman, Select Energy, invested in Select Energy Fund. Mark Green also invested funds in companies. Again, why this is important. The purchases by Green were made one day before the invasion of Ukraine, according to this report. "Quote unquote, war and rumors of war is incredibly profitable and convenient," quote unquote, Green tweeted on February 23rd. The revelations that Green bought a stock like Lockheed Martin prior to the invasion didn't sell well with colleagues. Quote unquote, add to this list of why many of members of Congress should never be allowed to trade stocks. Representative Omar tweeted, "A bipartisan push is underway to ban members of Congress from owning and trading stocks while in office, but there is no official bill on this vote yet." So again, in part, this is why I called this, again, that every war is a banker's war. From December 1st to 2020 to December 22nd, 2021, members of Congress bought and sold $296 million in stocks, a total of more than 3,500 transactions from 105 members of Congress that were tracked in an annual report by Unusual Whales. Members of Congress beat the market on average, outpacing the 13.6 gain for the S&P 500. So again, this kind of maps out the massive corruption that occurs, that every war is a banker's war, not only in the Ukraine, but also here, in the United States. We see the corrupt politician in Washington, D.C. benefit off the insider trading, off of the information regarding wars. No difference of why members of Congress go in and they make decent amount in terms of salary, but yet they retire multimillionaires. The system is set up to gain and to extract wealth from the American people, from the middle class, from the working poor. All these things take place, and we truly don't ever really question it. There are a few journalists. I'll criticize journalists, especially on the mainstream media, but then I like to give them credit for when they need to when they are having good reports, solid reports on some of this corruption. One of those recently was Jesse Waters, who was brave enough to question some of this. And this is what Jesse had to say.
It's been a rough few years, a pandemic, snap recession, now an inflation crisis. In times like this, we need somebody looking out for us, putting our interests first. That man isn't around, so who can we turn to? Well, it's certainly not Washington, D.C. Comedian Dennis Miller once said that Washington, D.C. is to lying what Wisconsin is to cheese. And he's not wrong. And the main thing Washington lies about is money. They'll beg, borrow, or steal to help themselves, using any inside information they can, while you're a day late and $1 short. And the war in Ukraine is no different. Vladimir Putin was building up troops along the Ukraine border for months. Washington knew it. Biden knew it. There were briefings. The satellite images got passed around Congress. The sanctions talk was swirling.
I've made it absolutely clear to President Putin, it's the last thing I'll say, that if he moves on Ukraine, the economic consequences for his economy are going to be devastating. Devastating.
This invasion was brewing for months, and Washington was assembling the economic sanctions packages behind closed doors. They knew this would impact the global economy and you directly. So you would figure that Congress, elected to represent our interests, would do something ahead of time to warn us and protect us against what was coming. Guard Americans from the economic turmoil. Maybe they'd take early action to cushion us from economic warfare. Get ahead of the energy crisis. Brace us for the commodity spikes and warn us about the supply chain fallout. Sounds reasonable, right? Well, it's not how DC works. Instead, it looks like Congress saw this as a gold rush. They knew what sanctions could be coming down, and all they had, dollar signs in their eyes. Members from both sides of the political aisle poured money into the market, buying up defense stocks, energy stocks. So as Ukraine burned to the ground, Congress got rich. It starts with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the former chair of the Democrat Party. In late January, more than a month before the invasion, Wasserman Schultz purchased up to $45,000 worth of Patterson UTI energy stock. What do? The company drills for oil and gas. Drill, Debbie, drill. And it's shot through the roof since then, jumping nearly 60% in value since she bought it. She sits on the Energy and National Security subcommittees, too, is buying up energy stocks, while national security situation here is looming. She didn't buy any windmill stock. That's so weird. Funny, because Biden was predicting energy prices were going down at the time. Maybe she knew something we didn't. And unfortunately, she's not alone. Then we have Lois Frankel, another Democrat sitting on the energy subcommittee. She snatched up 2 energy stocks in early January, Hess and Diamondback Energy, which have both jumped nearly 10% since. It's so funny because Frankel's a member of the Progressive Caucus, which backs the Green New Deal, and she's buying fossil fuel companies in the run-up to a war. This is what we're dealing with. But it's not just in the House. The Senate is getting in on the war profiteering trades, too. Tommy Tuberville, who sits on the Armed Services Committee, which you figure might know a thing or two about potential war sanctions, snagged up to $15,000 worth of Chevron and another 50 grand worth of Duke Energy. Over a month before the invasion, looks like Tommy was pretty clued in that Russia was going in. Or maybe Tommy was just reading the tea leaves. And it's not just energy. Senator Thomas Carper of Delaware, he bought up shares in the world's largest producer of fertilizer materials. And Russia and Belarus happen to be the 2 largest exporters of fertilizer. And it just so happens that Carper's already up 40% on the January investment. We've been going after Congress for the appearance of insider trading since the start of this show. You know, we targeted.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? So you may feel very comfortable tweeting and posting that paying higher gas prices is the right thing to do, support the Ukrainian people, donate, change your social media picture with a flag, do all those things. But take a look, peel back the layers, absorb the information to understand, again, that every war is a banker's war. Behind the scenes, people are making millions of dollars in the amount of corruption leading up to this, and they will continue doing so. Why? Because for the most part, as difficult it is to say, not only in Ukraine, but also here in the United States, we have a society that's not engaged in that. We don't understand facts, where maybe we understand, but we don't want to question it. We're too lazy to do the work to understand what's happening. We want to be quickly to label everything disinformation, Russian intelligence, all those things. Going forward, every opportunity that presents itself, I'm going to state this, is that there's no political solution under the current system of Democrats and Republicans to our country. Stop pretending there is. At the local level, yeah, you need to definitely pay attention to the local level. Your city council, your governor, your state representatives, yeah, pay attention to that. But at the national level, we have to continue to find ways to disrupt that, because it's all corrupt. Every bit of it is corrupt. Every bit of it. So again, to recap a little bit, Zelenske, fraud, corrupt, every bit of the oligarchs that he supported in Ukraine. Here in the United States, the amount of millions of dollars that continue to be extracted from the middle class, from the working poor, in the terms of supporting this escalation. It's very unfortunate, but we have a choice to make. We can change the system, but the question still remains the same. Are we going to care enough to change it, or are we going to wait till something directly impacts our lives? And as we know, I think that there's going to be a rude awakening happening real soon, because I think the way of our life is going to be changing quite a bit, especially if this escalates. We're already seeing it economically, not only in terms of gas prices, but we'll see it soon in food prices, potential shortages, if those things are going to happen. So, now's the time to get involved, to get engaged. And as I've said this, numerous times before, that don't wait for something to directly impact you, because that's happening right now. You're going to have many people who are going to be quick to say, hey, you know what, do the right thing. Why are you complaining about gas prices being 35, 45, 50 cents, $1, $2 more a gallon? I don't think you understand the ignorance of stating that, it doesn't matter. Because it does, because you doing that just feeds the corruption. It energizes them. It gives them the ability to continue what they're doing. It continues the ability for them to corrupt the system, versus joining the cause to disrupt the political elitist class, the globalists that have taken over, where, their top 1%, 2% can care less about the middle class, the working poor, about the people of Ukraine. They don't care about the people. They could care less. They put it up as just as a token, as a hey, I said this, and it's political score points. So again, I felt compelled. There was a lot of information that came out regarding this, and I know a lot of people hadn't heard the information in regards to the Panama Papers. And Zelenske, his $1.2 billion, because he was such a successful comedian. So please stop propping up as a hero. And anyone that posts about that, be quick to join that conversation to counter that narrative. Want to thank you all for tuning in. Great group of support. Love each and every one of you for joining the live stream and listening in. If you have not done so yet, do me a favor. You can follow my work in several different places. So if you're listening in, you're either listening here on CJOMC, so hit that subscribe button. Also on the Gadfly YouTube channel as well. You can also follow me on Twitter, which is over at producer CJ1. And many of you are aware of the work that I do with not only with Rogue News and Be the Guerrilla Economist, but also with Paul and Ken Shortgun Jr. of the Gadfly. So it's an honor and pleasure to work with such a talented group of commentators, to be involved with it, and then also have the following and the supporters that we do. So I want to thank you for that. This is CJ delivering another news brief, and then also everyone have a fantastic weekend. Don't lose optimism. Find ways to continue moving forward, to stay positive, to take time to laugh, spend time with family, really looking from a centric point of view as far as your individual needs and your family needs to navigate through what's happening. So everyone be safe, have a fantastic weekend, and I'll be back real soon. Thank you.